Everyone in our world knows I'm the Booth family's dirty little secret. I put down my gun, set aside my knife, washed the blood from my hands, and put on a human face to walk into the Booth family home. I was dying to see just how long the fake heir, born in the lap of luxury, would last before I killed him. But then I met his cold eyes in the living room. And this fake heir, son of a bitch, wasn't he the little lover I was so obsessed with years ago? The one who drugged me and ran. A cigarette dangled from my teeth. I looked down at the bruised and broken man on the floor. Taking the cigarette from my lips, I slowly exhaled a cloud of smoke. The gunshot wound in my left shoulder throbbed, but I ignored it. Through the white haze, I flicked a lighter open and shut, my voice calm. Chris, I've always treated you well, haven't I? Chris struggled to lift his head. In the lighter's flickering flame, his once passable face was a mess of purple bruises and dried blood. He lunged forward and grabbed my pant leg, but I kicked him away. His voice was a terrified plea. Calvin, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Trading a $50 million gambling debt for $200 million in arms. Chris, you're one hell of a businessman. I let out an appreciative laugh, stood up, and ground the cigarette out on his shoulder. Chris let out a muffled scream but didn't dare move. I cocked my pistol and pressed it to his temple. My smiling face turned cold. You know me, Chris. I don't tolerate traitors. Right after I dealt with Chris, I washed the blood off my hands. Just as I was about to clean up the rest of the mess, I got a call. It was Mrs. Lee, an older woman who'd helped me out when I was a kid. She sounded incredibly excited. Calvin, a whole group of people showed up at your place. They were in fancy cars, dressed to the nines. They said you're Mr. Booth's biological son. When they found out you weren't here, they asked me to pass on a message. My brow slowly furrowed. The grass on my parents' graves was taller than me. Where the hell did another set of parents come from? Mrs. Lee, did they say which Booth family? The one that owns the Booth Corp. I didn't react. My tone was flat. Okay, Mrs. Lee, I'll head back now. After hanging up, I went on with my business as if nothing had happened. The long-lost son of the Booth family? TSK. Chris's betrayal was a bigger shock. On paper, my identity is just a server working at a bar. I live in a cheap, run-down apartment block nearby. The bar is my territory, so the manager knows who I really am. He smiled, handing me a cigarette and flicking his lighter. Calvin, the fake heir to the Booth family, has been living your life for over 20 years. You've been through so much. You want us to. He made a throat-slitting gesture. I shot him a look. The manager sheepishly put the lighter away. A red ember glowed between my fingers. I casually flicked the ash. If you guys kill him, what's left for me to play with? The manager bowed his head. You're right, Calvin. I narrowed my eyes, a spark of interest lighting them up. Actually, I'm quite curious myself. What's this imposter, who grew up soaked in wealth and privilege, really like? What was he like? He was the spitting image of my lover who ran away from me years ago. I put down my gun, set aside my knife, washed the blood from my hands, and put on a human face. I wore a white t-shirt that came in a 2 for $20 pack from some cheap website, a dated dark jacket, a pair of washed-out jeans, and worn-out sneakers with peeling leather. I got into the car the Booth family had sent to pick me up. The Booth estate was massive, just as I'd expected. I'd heard of the Booth Corp. My biological grandfather started it in real estate. Then, seeing the rise of the internet, my biological father made a decisive move, quickly seizing a share of the market. Basically, it's a huge, squeaky clean corporation in this country, a completely different world from the criminal underworld I inhabit. I stepped into the Booth home under the pitying, and occasionally contemptuous, gazes of the maids and staff. I walked into a bright, spacious hall. The marble floors were polished to a mirror shine. A crystal chandelier glittered overhead, and priceless oil paintings hung on the walls. I took my time looking around. I had my own places, some even more luxurious, but I couldn't help my curiosity. Was this the life I was supposed to have? A life in the sunlight, No bare-bones apartment in a tenement building with moss growing in the dark corners. No damp, musty smell hanging in the air. No mothers screaming, no fathers' beatings. No bullying from classmates, no scorn from teachers. No shame of not having enough money for tuition. You are the stain on my life, the greatest shame I've ever known. Why didn't I just strangle you when you were born? My mother's hysterical, malicious voice stabbed at my nerves. You're so beautiful. How did Daddy never notice how pretty you are? Come here. Let Daddy love you. My drunk father dropped the bloody belt. Just when I thought the beating was over, he started stroking my face, his other hand choking my neck. His greedy, crazed eyes became the stuff of my childhood nightmares. The moment the knife plunged into my father's stomach, I knew there was no going back. A vicious-looking man patted my head, his voice a menacing grin. You sure about this? Kid, joining us isn't playing house. People really die. My eyes were dark, my blood-soaked fingers trembling non-stop. I tilted my head up slightly. The tenement buildings were too tall, too dense. It was a sunny day, but not a single ray of light could get in. It was so cold. Let's go. When I turned my back, it was decided. I would spend the rest of my life walking away from the sun. Wisps of jealousy and resentment were suppressed by a much stronger sense of reason. I lowered my gaze, a chilling smile playing on my lips. It's okay. I'll just take the fake heir's head to commemorate my dead past. My acting skills had been honed to perfection over years in the dog-eat-dog underworld. I cautiously glanced around, like a sparrow trapped in a golden cage, insecure and timid. But when my eyes landed on the expensive porcelain and famous paintings in the living room, I couldn't hide the excitement and greed in them. The butler who received me couldn't help but frown at my display. My biological parents and sister were already waiting for me in the living room. My father was stern, my mother gentle, my sister sweet. Seeing me, my parents didn't show any disgust on the surface. Instead, their faces filled with guilt and sympathy as they started to approach. My sister, seeing my clothes, didn't show any contempt or impatience either. She just called out brightly and warmly, "Brother, welcome home." My fingers twisted until they were white. I put on a fawning expression, about to stammer out Dad, Mom, Sis. Suddenly, I locked eyes with another pair of sharp, almond-shaped eyes in the living room. The young man was exceptionally handsome, his features as if drawn with dark ink, but the air of noble detachment about him tempered his striking looks, making him seem cold and formidable. Henry's gaze fell on my increasingly sycophantic face, and for a man who was always composed, shock flashed through his eyes. This was the fake heir, but he was also the damn lover I'd been crazy about years ago, the one who screwed me over and ran away. I smiled through gritted teeth. According to my original plan, I was supposed to be overcome with jealousy, insecurity, anger, and pain upon seeing the fake heir. I would then punch this culprit who had stolen my life, throwing the Booth family into chaos. At the same time, I'd get to see the Booth family's true colors. Who was more important? Me, their biological son who had suffered endlessly on the outside, or the adopted son they had raised and educated for over 20 years. The world runs on self-interest, especially a wealthy family that has always prioritized profit. Patience has its limits. This greedy, calculating, vicious, and stupid biological son would sooner or later wear away their guilt and sense of obligation. When that happened, how would they choose? I suppressed the wicked glee and intense curiosity churning inside me, ignoring the twisted jealousy and hatred buried deep in my bones. I put on a deceptive mask and became a cold observer of it all. No matter what, I couldn't lose, because all I wanted was to watch the show, to add a little fun to my boring life. When I got tired of the game, I'd just go back to the world where I belonged. But now I've changed my mind. After calling out Dad, Mom, Sis, I turned to look at Henry. Couldn't help but marvel. A few years had passed. My little lover's aura had clearly become deeper, more restrained. That face was still, as always, my absolute type. I would never forget how captivating those cold, almond-shaped eyes were, unflustered even with a gun to his head, when they were clouded with desire, red-rimmed and teary. My heart pounded. My mother hesitated, glancing at me nervously before introducing him. "He's your brother. You're my little brother," I exclaimed with delight, grabbing both of Henry's hands. "You've got to be kidding me. Who the hell wants to be the younger brother?" Back then, in bed, I can't even count how many times I made Henry call me big brother. My fingertips brushed his palm like a feather, familiar and intimate. All of Henry's composure was shattered by me, just like now. He desperately wanted to pull away but was afraid our parents would notice the friction between us. But I was much stronger than him, gripping his hand like a vice while putting on a careful, humble expression, as if terrified he would reject me. Henry took a deep breath, as if giving in, and stopped struggling. He let out a barely audible mm. During dinner, I didn't forget to maintain my persona as the broke kid hitting the big time. I devoured the expensive, delicious dishes on the table, the spoon clattering loudly against the porcelain bowl. The butler and maids looked like they couldn't bear to watch. My father, however, remained unfazed. My mother said with a pained expression, "You must be starving, Calvin. Do you want more?" My sister stared wide-eyed. Wow, my brother can really eat. After dinner, Henry went upstairs to his room. I followed him. Just as he was about to close the door, I squeezed inside in one swift movement and locked the door behind me. My face was pale, and I looked down, dejected. "Don't you like me, little brother? Why won't you say a single word to me?" Henry sighed, his expression complicated. "Calvin, stop acting." I leaned against the door, looked up, and raised an eyebrow. The insecure, timid look vanished, replaced by a faint smile. My voice took on a cool edge. "Baby, long time no see." Henry stared at me. "Calvin, long time no see." Unlike in novels where one protagonist gets caught and dragged back by the other, legs broken and locked away, I never did that. Why? It's not that I didn't want to, it's that I couldn't fucking catch him. Henry, a civilian, managed to escape from me, a gangster on his first try. I still remember that day. I had just led my men to wipe out a rival gang and was feeling on top of the world. That was the night Henry slept with me, and when I was least on guard, he injected me with a dose of anesthetic. As I watched in fury, he slowly got dressed, patted my cheek, and leaned in to kiss the corner of my mouth. His voice was gentle yet cold. "Goodbye, Calvin." And then he just vanished without a trace. I was immediately tied up with other matters, and by the time I went looking for him, the trail had gone cold. He was impossible to find. "It's been years, baby. Did you miss me?" I gave a lazy yawn, as if we'd never been apart, and pulled him into my arms. I buried my chin in the crook of his neck, inhaling the familiar scent of sandalwood. My frayed nerves began to calm. Henry didn't speak or struggle. I slowly pulled out the hem of his undershirt and ran my hand over his abs. Henry grabbed my wrist. I looked at him, annoyed. "What? After all these years, you won't even let me touch you? You used to beg me to." Henry frowned. "You're injured." I turned my head. A patch on my left shoulder was damp, but it wasn't very noticeable. I dismissed it. "It's just a scratch. Don't worry about it." Henry didn't believe me at all. He reached out and touched it, his hand coming away covered in blood. This was the first time since I'd entered the booth house that I saw an expression resembling panic on his face. Henry had me sit on the bed and carefully helped me take off my jacket. I turned to look. The blood seeping from the reopened wound had stained the entire shoulder of my white t-shirt red. It actually did hurt a bit. Henry's brow furrowed even deeper. "This is what you call a scratch?" I didn't think much of it. "You've seen me with worse injuries. For a man, anything short of death is just a flesh wound." Henry grabbed a pair of scissors, cut my t-shirt off, and tossed it aside, revealing the blood-soaked bandage underneath. He pulled a first aid kit from under the bed, gently unwrapped the bandage, and exposed the mangled wound on my shoulder. He composed himself and asked in a low voice, "Does it hurt a lot?" I was shameless. "Kiss it and it'll be all better." Henry ignored me. His movements were gentle as he expertly cleaned the wound. "Who did this?" he asked, his voice laced with a cold fury. I watched him, his first aid kit fully stocked with all kinds of instruments and medicines, and the practiced way he handled a gunshot wound, and narrowed my eyes. Something felt off. But the wound was throbbing, and my attention quickly shifted. I smoothed out the wrinkled bedsheet, not really wanting to talk about it. A traitor. He's been dealt with. Henry's gaze fell on my bare torso. It was covered in scars, new and old. Knife wounds, gunshot wounds, stab wounds, cigarette burns, brandings, whip marks. Some were from before Henry knew me. Others were new from after he'd left. Henry's dark, almond-shaped eyes stared at the scars on my body. I couldn't tell what he was thinking. I pulled a cigarette from my pocket, stuck it in my mouth, and was about to light it when Henry took it away. I glared at him. Henry tossed the cigarette into the trash. "Smoking is bad for you," he said coldly. "Me. If you won't let me smoke, then let me kiss your pretty mouth." Henry stood up, looking down at me. He was radiating a cold, imposing aura. Anyone who didn't know better would think he was the top. My right hand misbehaved, reaching for his belt. I called him by his real name, my voice full of righteous indignation. "Henry, you have to compensate me." The nerve of this guy to ask, for what? "Me, you stole my identity for over 20 years. Don't you think you owe me?" Henry's eyelashes lowered slightly. He let out a small laugh. "You're right, I do." Satisfied, I said menacingly, "Do you know what I was thinking on the way here? Whether I should skin that bastard, gut him, or hang him up and whip him until he was a bloody mess. I've suffered so much, been hurt so many times. Just staying alive has taken everything I have. Why should this imposter get to take my place and enjoy years of wealth and luxury?" I tore away the polite facade between us. Yes, I wanted him to feel guilty, to blame himself, to feel my pain. When I first learned my true identity, I was filled with intense resentment and jealousy. I'd even picked out a burial plot for the fake heir. But then I saw Henry. When I saw Henry, the hatred froze. The person I adored, the one I held on a pedestal. In that moment, I actually felt a strange sense of relief. I was glad it was me who had gone through it all, not him. The past is the past. The mistake was made and couldn't be undone. Might as well use it to my advantage, get a little something sweet out of it. Preferably him, lying down and letting me have my way with him. I was lost in a pleasant fantasy, having already planned out dozens of positions, when I saw Henry pull a black t-shirt from his closet and hand it to me. I took it happily. "Is this one you've worn?" Henry was expressionless. "It's new." My hand trembled as I tossed it aside. "I want one you've worn." 10 minutes later, I had successfully changed into Henry's t-shirt, jacket, and pants. I then surveyed his room with satisfaction, like a male animal inspecting his territory. The bed was big enough, the lighting was good, and the room was spacious. Excited, I pushed my luck further. "I want to live with you." "Henry, no, Mom and Dad." I moved my injured shoulder, blinked slowly, and whispered one pathetic word. "Hurts. If I live alone, there's no one to take care of me." Henry looked at my face, pale from pain and blood loss, and how I was still recklessly moving around, completely careless with my own body. Henry was so angry he laughed. "Fine, you can stay with me." I happily leaned in for a kiss. Just as our lips were about to touch, Henry cupped my chin with one hand. With his other hand protecting my injured shoulder, he kissed me fiercely. His kiss was savage, a ruthless invasion. It was less a kiss and more a vengeful release. My tongue was numb from his assault. Our hot breaths tangled together, carrying an unbearable weight of pain, hatred, and longing. Wait, where did my cold and shy little lover go? He finally let me go, his eyes downcast, his voice a low whisper. "Calvin, do you have any idea how much you're asking for it, looking like that? I'm thinking maybe I should lock you up, fuck you into submission so you won't run around getting hurt." "Hold on. Buddy, did you just steal my line? And how did the conservative young man who used to tell me to shut up after a few dirty jokes suddenly start spouting such filth?" I said seriously, "You're not my little lover. Tell me, did you possess his body?" Henry stared at me, his gaze no longer calm and detached. It was like a cold, slick snake, its tongue flicking out to taste the air around me, making my skin crawl. I cleared my throat, playfully stroking his face. "You wanna fuck me? In your dreams." This wasn't the first time I knew he wanted to top. I'll admit, his fighting skills are impressive, but he's no match for me, someone who's dragged himself back from the brink of death countless times. Even with an injured shoulder, I could pin him with one hand. I still remember the first time we met. It was at a nightclub overseas. God knows how a great young master of the Booth family ended up as a male model there. Henry was stunning. His cool, aloof Asian face stood out among the exotic beauties. His features were exquisite, his aura noble and cold. He didn't look like a courtesan who had fallen on hard times, but more like a young nobleman from a wealthy family. His frosty, almond-shaped eyes seemed to pull my soul right out of me. I didn't like women and I didn't like men. Thanks to my beast of a father, I had a deep aversion to sex. After years in the underworld, even with countless men and women offering themselves to me, I had never touched any of them. But seeing Henry, I felt a long-dormant desire awaken. For him, it was love at first sight. That face was fatally beautiful, my absolute type. I chose him without hesitation and eagerly took him back to my suite. When we were almost completely undressed, down to our underwear, my fantasy shattered, because he pinned me down, his voice cold but soft, and said, "I'm topping." Even though I had no experience in that department, I knew the top was the one in control, and I considered myself the one in control. So our signals were crossed. I refused, but I don't want to bottom. I'm afraid it'll hurt. "Henry, you think it won't hurt for me?" I said deadpan. "I'll be gentle." The cool, aloof beauty rolled up his sleeves, revealing powerfully built forearms. The muscles of his waist were faintly visible under his tight shirt. "Then let's settle it like men. A fight decides who tops." "Wait, is this how you male models and your clients usually decide these things?" I don't know what he told his parents, but I ended up living in his room. In the days that followed, it was clear my biological parents wanted to make it up to me, and my sister really wanted to get close to me. When my parents took me shopping at luxury stores, if I so much as glanced at something, my father would wave his hand and buy it without batting an eye. When my mother ran into other wealthy socialites who would laugh behind their hands and subtly put me down, my gentle mother would verbally eviscerate them with a tongue like a poisoned needle. I was in awe. At night, I would bite Henry's ear, caress his smooth skin, listen to his suppressed gasps, feel his body tremble. I'd grab his hair and kiss him hard, then lick his damp eyelashes. "You've had it so good for the past 20 years. Loving parents, no worries about food or clothes. I'm so jealous." I said it sarcastically, viciously flipping him over. Henry lifted his usually cold, almond-shaped eyes, now even more beautiful tinted with desire, and laughed. "Good? Can get even better." And so, the next day, I stared, dumbfounded, at a line of tutors in the living room. My parents introduced them one by one. This one was to teach me high society etiquette. This one was for appreciating luxury goods and fine wines. This one was for teaching me foreign languages. This one was for styling. There was even one to teach me corporate management. Each teacher smiled at me warmly. Henry gave me an innocent smile and whispered in my ear, "Calvin, you're too aggressive. All this fighting and killing is so bloody. I'm going to teach you how to be an elegant, tasteful gentleman and a corporate CEO." Under the expectant gazes of the teachers, as I struggled to suppress my fluent accent and force out a clumsy, broken English, with Henry snickering on the side, I wanted to slap myself. Why did I ever create this persona? "Bro, you're seriously so handsome." My sister, a sucker for a pretty face, stared at my face in a daze and slapped a black card down on the counter. "This one, that one, and this set, that set, they all look good. Bag them all up for me." My sister excitedly picked out clothes for me in the boutique. I sat on the small sofa in the store, glancing at my reflection in the full-length mirror. A light gray V-neck wool blend sweater over a white cotton shirt, the collar slightly open to reveal my collarbone. khaki slacks with a crisp fabric that made my legs look a little long. A Vacheron Constantine with a deep blue face was on my wrist. I was squinting lazily, looking relaxed and casual. I guess I did have a bit of that born-to-wealth air about me. I was getting a little sleepy. Listening to the soft music in the store, my constantly tense nerves finally relaxed. Without realizing it, I fell asleep. Bro, shoo, be quiet. A familiar sandalwood scent enveloped me. I automatically found a comfortable position and snuggled into the person, continuing to sleep. I was woken up by a ringing phone. Opening my eyes, I found myself in my room at home. I answered the phone casually. An anxious voice came through. Calvin, someone's causing trouble at our spot. My brow furrowed, and my hand instinctively went to my waist. Fuck, where's my gun? I vaguely remembered a hand patting me down while I was half asleep. Wait, don't tell me Henry took it? I gritted my teeth. Suddenly, an idea flashed. I reached out and opened the drawer of the nightstand. Sure enough, there was my gun. There was even a sticky note on it. Figured this would dig into you while you sleep, so I put it here. Back when he was my lover, he used to do the same thing. Find my gun while I slept and put it in the nightstand drawer. I quickly tucked the gun back into my waistband and rushed out the door. By the time I arrived at the casino, gun in hand, I had gotten the full story on the way over and was about to explode. Someone dared to use my territory to smuggle drugs. They must have a death wish. Aside from the fact that I despised drugs and forbade all my men from touching them, anyone who dared was thrown into the sea to feed the sharks. The anti-drug enforcement in this country was incredibly strict. I didn't want to bring that kind of heat on myself. Crossing the casino floor, the air was thick with tension. The gamblers had already been cleared out, leaving only a few of my trusted men guarding the staircase. I went straight to the second floor, pushed open the door to a private room, and saw two identical-looking men sitting inside. One had a gentle expression and a smile on his lips, with an elegant and noble air. If he wasn't playing with a pistol, you'd think he was some innocent young master from a rich family. The other had a cigarette dangling from his lips, the white smoke blurring his rebellious features. His eyes were cold and fierce, like an unsheathed, blood-stained sword. You could tell he wasn't someone to mess with. Though they looked exactly alike, their personalities were distinct and easy to tell apart. It was my brother, Jasper, and his partner, Larry. But why did they look identical? Jasper told me it was another version of him from a parallel universe. I'd have to be an idiot to believe that. You might as well say you went crazy and cloned yourself. As far as I knew, Jasper didn't have a twin. And given his horrifically tragic past, it wouldn't be surprising if he did go mad and clone himself. Jasper, believe what you want. Looking down, I saw several men groaning on the floor, their legs shot through with bullets. The air was thick with the smell of blood. The elegant, gentle man stood up, his clear voice ringing out. Calvin, your men are slipping. They let drug smugglers right in. I didn't have time to waste on small talk. I sat down like I owned the place. Help me out. Find those bastards and destroy their drug den, and I'll give you a 50-50 split of this casino's profits. I sneered, using me as a pawn. Do they really think I'm some kind of pushover? This whole thing had gotten big. The police were probably already aware. Unlike me, who was purely in the underworld, Jasper played both sides, legal and illegal. With him handling things, my life would be a lot easier. Jasper smiled faintly. I'll clean up this mess for you. Consider it returning the favor from last time. No need to split the casino profits. I knew he was referring to when he used my casino to get rid of his two older brothers. I gestured, and my men immediately dragged the men on the floor away. The three of us were left alone in the room. Larry, who usually couldn't be bothered with me, looked at me and suddenly asked, Jasper said you're the real heir to the Booth Corp? A flicker of interest finally appeared in his eyes. What are you going to do with the fake one? Jasper also looked ready for some gossip. I just felt it was a bizarre question. Why would I do anything to him? Larry looked at me like I was an idiot. He stole your identity. You were supposed to be the pampered young master, but you were cast out for so many years, suffering and tortured. You don't hate him? You don't want revenge? Me a little, but not that much. After all, I like Henry so much. I'm glad I was the one cast out, not him. He's a delicate young master. He wouldn't have survived the harsh life outside. Larry, you're a real love martyr. Jasper. A zombie would take one bite of your brain and spit it out, calling it lovesick mush. Larry asked suspiciously, but I remember Jasper saying you had a little lover you doted on a few years ago? Moved on that fast? Me. That little lover is Henry. Jasper propped up his chin, suddenly very interested in my love life. As a mob boss, when he ran away, you didn't conquer him, break his legs, and lock him up? I lowered my eyes. When Henry ran, could I really not have caught him? Of course not. In fact, I had tacitly allowed him to inject me with the anesthetic and plan his escape. Living in this world, there were countless people who wanted me dead. Once, Henry took a blade to the back for me, protecting me from an enemy. It was deep enough to see bone. If that blade had hit me, I probably wouldn't have even blinked. But the blood flowing from him, why was it so glaringly bright? My heart nearly stopped. A boundless panic washed over me like a tidal wave, leaving me breathless and terrified. This time, the blade landed on his back. Next time, would it land in his heart? In that moment, I finally understood. He would become my weakness, and I would be his death warrant, if I kept forcing him to stay by my side. What if one day my guard slipped? What if he died? What would I do then? He was like the bright moon in the night sky, clear and pure, untouched by dust, and I was just a pile of mud that coveted him. Piece of filth. We were destined for a bad ending. I poured myself a cup of tea and took a sip. Love is possession, but it's also letting go. I don't want to do anything that makes him unhappy. Larry couldn't believe I was such a romantic. You're a gangster and you're playing the pure love story? I retorted, what's wrong with a pure love story? Should I be like you too, with your pure hate story of dismemberment and imprisonment? That sounds painful. It's not like I have a pain fetish. Jasper looked at me meaningfully. Perhaps the Henry from 5 years ago was no threat, but now, as your brother, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't let your guard down around him. A joke. What does he mean, don't let my guard down? After all these years in the underworld, am I really going to get screwed over in my own back? My gaze fell on the silver chains around my wrists and waist. Yard. I remembered the scene just before I passed out. The eager look in Henry's almond-shaped eyes. My heart, liver, spleen, and lungs ached with rage. The things I couldn't bear to use on you, you motherfucker, use on me. I scanned the room. It was one of Henry's villas in the suburbs. He hadn't gone too far. There were no cameras, the chains were long, and my phone was on the nightstand with the internet still connected. I expressionlessly unlocked my phone and opened an app. I adjusted the device settings. It was a miniature listening device I'd gotten from Jasper, originally intended to spy on an enemy. I had clipped it to an inconspicuous button and forgotten to take it off when I came back. Henry and I are about the same size, and we wear each other's clothes all the time. I remember Henry was wearing my jacket before I passed out. If I'm lucky, maybe. A clear, cold voice came from my phone. Jasper, don't worry about the Black Panther gang's drug smuggling. I'll handle it for Calvin. Also, I want you to stay away from Calvin. Jasper's voice was gentle but tinged with exasperation. I'm telling you, Henry, your possessiveness is off the charts. You're no saint yourself, but you insist on playing the innocent lamb in front of Calvin. These past few years, you've been aggressively taking over turf and resources. Everyone on the street says you, Henry, are a maniac who doesn't fear death. Henry's tone was sarcastic. No matter how crazy I am, I'm not as crazy as you. Getting it on with your own clone. Jasper's composure shattered in a second. I did not clone myself. Henry, you think I don't know where you came from? Cloning someone wouldn't be out of character for you. Henry said coldly, someone as mentally unstable as you is too dangerous. And you're an extreme narcissist. Calvin can do better. Jasper laughed with rage. And you're a picture of mental stability? Larry, who had been silent, spoke up. Jazzy, I also think you should stay away from Calvin. Jasper was annoyed. Little brat, whose side are you on? Larry, why do you need so many brothers? You're mine. You only need me. Jasper was completely won over. Okay, darling, I'll go break up with Calvin right now. Brothers are like clothes, but Larry is like a limb. For a moment, it was hard to tell who was crazier. I looked at the chains on my wrists, and suddenly felt that I was the only goddamn sane one in this group of psychos. I had to laugh. Couldn't help it. I called Henry. A sudden fuck came through the listening device. It was hard to imagine Henry cursing. Then I heard Larry's gleeful voice. This is gonna be good. Henry finally answered. His cold voice carried a hint of apprehension. Calvin. Henry, get your ass back here and take these chains off me. Or tonight, I'm taking you apart. I care about you, so I never dared to play these games, afraid you'd hate it. And you just go ahead and use them on me without a second thought? I sneered. Put Jasper on the phone. Henry didn't dare refuse. Jasper hesitantly took the phone. I said sarcastically, Jasper, you're breaking up with me. Huh? Did you fucking forget who helped you inside and out to destroy that lab that held you captive for a dozen years? Who took care of you day and night when you were in agonizing withdrawal, terrified you were gonna die? Me. You goddamn bastards. You all just think I'm an easy target, don't you? Henry's voice weakened. Calvin, how did you know? Touch the third button on your jacket. See what's inside. There was a rustling sound. Larry recognized it immediately. Is that a bug? I suppressed the fire in my gut. I must have the worst luck in the world to have met you bunch of headaches. Silence. They got the message. Surrender. The silver chains that were on me this morning were on Henry tonight. Loops of silver chain lay scattered across his waist. He's so sensitive. A gentle tug on the chain was enough to send a shiver through his body. Don't, he gasped, unable to take it. I grabbed his chin and kissed him. Aki, you're so beautiful when you cry. I finally asked him, back then, why did you want to leave me? Henry buried his head in my neck, his voice muffled. Because I was too weak. Just a lover in name only. Completely unable to protect you. He let out a muffled laugh. If I had power in both the underworld and the legitimate world, do you think I could have helped you? I nuzzled his face with my nose and scoffed. Don't make it sound so noble. Did you want to help me? Or did you want to trap me? You wolf in sheep's clothing. Henry, could I trap you? I thought about it seriously, not with a mocking you and what army, but instead asked, would you have the heart to? Henry sighed. No. Even when playing at captivity, he didn't dare go too far. The moment I yelled at him, he came scurrying back to unlock me. Moonlight streamed through the window, exceptionally bright and clear. I kissed his sweat-damp hair. Should we go get rings custom made tomorrow? Henry wrapped his arms around my waist, his ear pressed to my chest, listening to my heartbeat. Okay. The dirty child covered in mud had finally caught the clear moon that didn't despise him. Epilogue. For me and Calvin, it was love at first sight. I was studying abroad, just starting to get involved in the underworld, and was being chased by enemies. I hid myself among the male models. I saw him, sitting on the sofa, an oriental man so graceful and exquisitely beautiful he seemed unreal. My absolute type. I almost forgot I was on the run. Seeing how respectfully the manager treated him, his status had to be significant. His gaze fell on me. He seemed very interested. Perfect, because I was very interested in him too. My Chinese face stood out too much among the blonde-haired, blue-eyed foreign beauties. I didn't have much time, so I decided I would use him to escape my pursuers. But I didn't expect he actually wanted to sleep with me. Fine, I'll do it. I'd never met a beauty so perfectly suited to my tastes. But this was my first time. I was going to be the top. I'm used to being in charge. I have to be in control of everything. He said he was afraid of the pain and didn't want to bottom. I honestly wanted to laugh. Did he think if he was in pain I wouldn't be? We couldn't agree, so I glanced at his seemingly slender and weak frame and proposed. Then let's settle it like men. A fight decides who tops. The man gave me a complicated look. Are you sure? Me? I'm sure. This would be the decision I regretted most. I lay half dead on the bed, lost in thought. How could a man so beautiful he was almost androgynous be so skilled in combat? The man beside me looked satisfied and was even eager for another round. I said expressionlessly, "If you want me dead, just say so." The man, "Baby, you're so beautiful when you cry." Me, "This is your first time, isn't it? You're terrible at it. What's your name?" I didn't give my real name, just made one up. "Peter." "And you?" "Calvin." "Oh, so he was that big boss from the streets? No wonder he was so skilled, with so many scars. Earned with his life. I didn't lose unfairly. Wait, I think one of the people I pissed off was a grunt from this boss's organization. Shit. Not only did I deliver myself to his doorstep, but I was also eaten clean. As they say, the most dangerous place is the safest place. This little incident clearly wouldn't have reached the top boss. I'll pretend to be his little lover and hide out for a while. During my time with Calvin, he was very good to me. He'd handle his enemies with a cigarette dangling from his lips, completely unfazed. Blood would splatter below his eye like a teardrop tattoo. Or amidst the sound of gunfire at a shootout, his long fingers would grip the butt of his gun, his expression cold and deadly. It made my heart pound. I liked him very much. I even took a blade for him when danger approached. I'd never been so seriously injured in my life. The pain was so bad I went numb. It was the first time I saw Calvin, who was used to digging bullets out of his own body, have a look of panic in his eyes. He had feelings for me. He liked me as much as I liked him. After my wound healed, I had one last round with him. Then I planned my escape. I was too weak. I would easily become Calvin's weakness. And things overseas were too chaotic. So I fled back to my own country, where I had my own territory. I also knew that Calvin had allowed my escape. He'd given me an ocean of leeway. One strong, one weak. Pair like that rarely ends well. My father handed over some of the family business to me. On the surface, I was the young Mr. Booth, but behind the scenes, I stepped into another world. The night couldn't muffle the deafening gunshots and explosions. The tip of a knife twisted in the wound, prying out a bullet. I spat out the towel, my head covered in a cold sweat from the pain. The blade reflected my dark, cold eyes. "Boss, are you? Those sons of bitches playing dirty." I let out a sinister laugh. "Burn their warehouses to the ground. Leave nothing behind." Because of my identity, I looked at the growing number of scars on my body, frowned, and had them all surgically removed. 5 years later, my parents suddenly told me I wasn't their biological son. I was switched at birth by a careless nurse. My biological parents were already dead. My birth father was supposedly stabbed to death by debt collectors over gambling debts. My birth mother died in a daze, hit by a car, and my parents' biological son had dropped out of school early, lived in a cheap tenement, and worked odd jobs at a nearby bar, living hand to mouth. Meeting my parents' complicated, teary eyes, I was silent. After more than 20 years of affection, Mom and Dad couldn't just throw me away. But I couldn't be shameless either. By then, I had influence in both the underworld and the legitimate world. Even without the Booth family, I would be fine. I wanted to find Calvin. My parents weren't my parents, my sister wasn't my sister. Then all I had left was Calvin. For 5 years, I hadn't stopped thinking about him for a moment. I just wanted to be worthy of him. I felt a little guilty about the real heir. But not much. Can you expect someone who navigates both the light and the dark to have much sympathy? At most, I would leave the Booth family, stay out of his sight, and leave him a portion of the money I had earned over the years. Then I would protect him and ensure he lived a worry-free life. I sorted out my Booth family assets, ready to pack my bags and get the hell out as soon as the real heir arrived, so I could go find Calvin. I'd even booked my flight. But when I got a clear look at the handsome but timid young man walking in, I was stunned. He was speechless. Once it was confirmed that he was truly my parents' biological son, my attitude shifted directly from "what does it have to do with me?" I was just a newborn. What could I do? It was just his bad luck. I'll give him some money and look after him. What else can I do? Do I deserve to fucking die? Especially the crisscrossing scars on his body. When I was his lover, I had personally caressed them, kissed them. Back then, my heart ached for him. That's why, when I was in the underworld, I specifically targeted forces that had grudges against Calvin. And in the end, turns out, the enemy was me. The gunshot wound on his shoulder was bleeding again. Treating my own wounds had become a habit. I expertly re-bandaged it for him. But this person wouldn't stay still, constantly teasing me. I almost couldn't hold him down. I lowered my eyes, hiding the thick possessiveness and twisted madness churning in their depths. But that was followed by an overwhelming fear. My palms grew cold and sweaty. I had taken his place. He was forced down a dark path. He had suffered so much, bled so much, been hurt so many times. Would he hate me? Would he despise me? Just the thought of him looking at me with cold indifference. I knew I couldn't bear it, let alone with hatred and killing intent. But I never expected him to demand compensation from me so righteously. At that moment I felt that, if he wanted my life, I would give it to him. I regretted it very quickly. Not here. He laughed slyly. Why not? Afraid your little followers will hear? What do your guys call you? Boss Booth? I can't out-sleaze you. In the end, I couldn't win against him. Sometimes he went too far, like a tireless beast. When I couldn't take it anymore, I would start fighting him. He would then press my hand against a scar on his chest. His eyes would be misty, fatally beautiful. His voice would go soft. Just once, last time. And I would surrender. But how many times did we end up doing it? I don't know, because I passed out. When I found out what my beast of a biological father almost did to Calvin. If Calvin hadn't stopped me, I would have dug up his grave. The day my parents and sister found out, we were kissing in my CEO's office about to start a fire. The three of them came to visit me together and pushed open the door. My sister gave a dry laugh. Well, after all the twists and turns, we're still one big family, huh? My dad's face was stern. What is the meaning of this? He scolded. My mom looked like she couldn't bear to watch. In the end, they had no choice but to accept us. The custom-made rings are beautiful. A diamond is set on top. CH is engraved on the inside. The clerk also gave us a greeting card. I held the card as Calvin and I walked home hand in hand. The moonlight poured down like water, with a faint silver glow, gentle and passionate, clear and sacred, illuminating the words on the card. Calvin had written them himself, word by word. The mud stained the moon, but the moon did not mind. It slowly descended and plunged headfirst into the mud's embrace.